India has the ability, has the people, has the numbers to create world champions in sport. But if you look at the Olympics, there are about 33 events. We participate only in 15. And we're expecting double-digit medals based on that number that we're going for, right? We're just using sport as a vehicle for all the social change that's happening around us. And along that way, if that, while India builds for sport, we'll definitely create a lot of champions along the way. Today, you're not saying, should I support a para athlete? You're like, of course, let's support them. But now it's a proper system of, and there's an army of people supporting athletes with disabilities.
As a mother of two boys who absolutely adore sport, I'm often left wondering, does the future hold a possibility of a career for them if they choose to pursue a sport of their choice? Going down a rabbit hole on the internet, I stumbled upon an icon, Deepthi Bopaiah, someone who's a sports person herself and is doing so much to help her co-sports persons who are differently abled. Her inspiring story that journeys through her own challenges and even includes 3 Olympics left me inspired, and I managed to get in touch with her for this podcast. Here's how that motivational conversation went. Hi, I'm Neha on the Expressions podcast. Today I'm in conversation with Deepthi Bopaiah. Hi Deepthi, thank you for coming here.
Thank you so much for having me. Lovely to be here.
I want to begin by asking you what got you into sports?
Wow, okay. I have to thank my parents for that. I think, I come from a place called Coorg, and most of us either are in the forces or we play sport. And right from we're very young, there is obviously growing up at that time, we didn't have digital screens. We were out in the fields, in the estates, climbing trees and doing all of that. So it was very natural for us to do it. But since we were born in Bangalore, my I think big influence of my parents and sport and the culture. In fact, my mom played hockey, and she was a mountaineer, and my dad played tennis, and they to date play tennis every day in the morning, so we have no excuses. My sister and I can never say, oh, we can't do this because they are doing it even now. So really that's my inspiration. And I also was very privileged to go to a school that had so much focus on sport. In fact, today I see a lot of sports days and different places where how they accept or promote sport in their schools. And I feel like, a bunch of my school friends, we were chatting and we're like, God, we were so ahead of the game, in terms of, it was not just the PT period, but everything had movement, activity, so, and our sports day, I think, is a big highlight. We had houses and we had competition, and, nowadays I keep saying the culture of everyone is a winner. I'm not sure about that. I'm a little mixed about, that concept, because a lot of what I or people around me and sports people have achieved is also because of, can you get to the best version of yourself, and can you be competitive, and can you push limits, and that does not come with everyone's a winner. We can all applaud ourselves for how far we've come, but there's 1, 2 and 3 winners, right? So yeah, I think it's more culturally how we are. We love the first rank, we love the gold medal, we love everything which is, the first. But when you look at in the context of sport, sometimes it's also about that journey. But if you do that too early on, you kind of don't even know what you're going after. So for me, sport has been everything that I know. I can't imagine my life without having sport, watching, seeing, playing, growing up, doing all of that. So till today, so I'm very fortunate to be in sport and get to live through athlete lives and journeys.
So while you were talking, I was reminded of my school motto, which said, it's not the victory but the fight, not to have won but to have fought well.
Those are your strong values, right? And you sometimes, when you keep saying what are your values, you don't realize it, but it's instilled somewhere with all the small little things we've done over
Absolutely.
over our lifetimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
So
really
sports
what.
basically is in your blood.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, when I was in the bank many years ago now, 13 years ago, before I quit the bank, I had made this list of all the things that I want to do, at that point of time. And uh, in Coorg, in fact, right now as we speak, the world's largest hockey festival happens,
Okay.
where you have 25 to 35,000 people coming over a period of 1 month, and different families come and do the competition.
Yeah.
So they fundraise, they get the funding, they
Yeah.
do all of that. So we actually had made a film called Hockey in My Blood.
Hmm.
Now, when you said, yeah, we made a very dear friend of mine called Sandhya Kumar, who's a national award filmmaker. She wanted to do something on sport and culture. And actually, if you look at any other community in the country, you don't see such a union between sport and culture than what you see in Coorg.
Yeah.
And hockey is a very big part of it.
It's a national sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's now in the Guinness Book of World Records because men, women, children, old people can all play in the team. And it's very
very
cool. It's a
interesting.
must see.
Yeah.
I mean, since you're here now, it's 5 hours from Bangalore, but it's definitely one of its kind.
Yeah.
Because it's unique. So that's how ingrained sport is for all of us.
So when was this movie released? Where is it available?
This is, went to a couple of film festivals,
Yeah.
but yeah, we are looking forward to doing a screening again
Okay.
and it was completely crowdfunded that time.
Wow.
So yeah, and so luckily for Sandhya, having this vision and bringing it to life, and me as going back to my roots and saying what can I do for Coorg and keep this as legacy. So we made that film.
Yeah.
We didn't realize how impactful it can be, and today when we're seeing it growing year on year, it's really special.
What do you do at GoSports? What is the idea behind GoSports?
Every 4 years we as Indians keep complaining
Yeah.
about how we didn't do well in the Olympics and the Paralympics, and then we remember it also 2 weeks when the ad starts playing, on the channels that are broadcasting it, and then once it's over, we forget. And elite sport doesn't work like that. It is about doing it every single day for a very long time. 8 to 10 to 15 years is a cycle to actually become an Olympian. And I think our founders who started GoSports Foundation at that point of time were friends from school in Joseph's in Bangalore. And they all played sport, and they were also very, good in studies. And there came a time where they had to choose between the education and their sport. And that's what happens in India. Your 10th standard, your 12th standard in college, and then you're like, you know what, I can't do the sport. There's no career in sport. And so I think that was a problem we wanted to solve, that there is enough talent in the country to get to the Olympics and Paralympics. What's really missing is a pathway, is a way to nurture young athletes, parents, coaches, to get them to their best potential. So that's really how we started GoSports, really funding from friends and family. For many times after 2-3 years, friends and family stopped inviting us to many functions because obviously we were only asking for funds. But I think the big change came in 2013 when CSR came into India and got mandated, right? So over there, training towards Olympic, Paralympic, rural sports actually became a category. So right from saying, hey, can you support this athlete, it became part of nation building. And that really changed things for us, because then the corporate's not asking, why should I do sport? Otherwise, in a country like us, there's so many other things to take care of. So sport seems like a luxury, but I think for us, it was really about how can we harness young talent's potential and get them to their best. So their best could be an Asian Games, could be a Commonwealth Games, could ultimately be the Olympics and Paralympics and a World Championship. But I think for us, it was India has the ability, has the people, has the numbers to create world champions in sport. We are the best doctors, scientists, we do well in every area that we go. So how can we not do well in sport? And for us, we felt there was a gap in the pathway. So that's been special. We're 16 years old now, and we've been doing this day in, day out, and uh, very grateful to all the athletes and parents and coaches who trusted us initially, because it's easy now to get people who want to get support, but for any athlete pursuing a dream as big as the Olympics and Paralympics, you have to choose who's on your team. You have to choose who gets onto my bus, and why should we be on that bus, right? So, and our model also was not just saying, oh, you're very talented, you've got a great game, we'll pick you up. We don't do that. We actually go through a scholarship model. Athletes apply for our scholarships. We go through an entire process. It's almost a 100-day process, because we believe we're going to work with them over 4 to 8 years. So how do you find that athlete who we can add value to, and that athlete who can benefit by being in the program? So it's been really exciting for us the last 16 years. We've got into different models. We work with individual athletes. Now we work with academies. We, thanks to all our CSR partners, somebody like an Infosys Foundation actually really challenged us and pushed us to say, okay, athletes are getting supported now because the government has come forward. There are many foundations who are doing some incredible work, who are also supporting elite athletes. The next big problem is academies. So we actually now fund full academies, so that the support just doesn't go to one athlete, but it goes to the entire system. How do we build the ecosystem? And we also have gone to communities, and we do state projects. Because in India, sport is a state subject. The state is responsible for the results. It's not a central government, decision of how Bangalore does or Karnataka does and all of that. So, but unfortunately, the states also have other challenges. Sport is never really picked up as a main agenda in that sense, but the funding sits with the state. So we've now started working with states, saying, hey, you know what, this is your thing, the budget, we'll put a program together and we'll work with you to make things happen. So we've actually started a program with Arunachal Pradesh, all the way in the northeast, but one of the very special projects, because again, in India, the sheer diversity and the corners and they say every 60 kilometers you have a new type of cuisine and a new dialect. And that is so special in India, right? So there is no one model fits all in India for sport. Many times we go to different countries and they're like, y'all should put this and y'all should implement this. But we're like, we can't. What works in south of India will not work in the north of India as well, even if it's the same sport. So it's been quite special for us. We've had a lot of donors, partners, believers, I would say, who've come into this journey and who really believe that sport is worth supporting, right? And it is part of nation building. And many of these athletes, just to share a few data points, we've had people like Deepa Karmakar, the gymnast who finished 4th at Tokyo Olympics. We had Bhavani Devi, who was the first fencer who went to the Olympics. And we've picked the first sailor, Netra, who, went into Tokyo. So we've really picked sports which are very uncommon. And we are trying to broaden the base of the number of athletes that go to the Olympics. Because typically, if you see, they say traditionally we're good in shooting, we're good in wrestling, we're good in boxing, and majority of the support goes back to those sports again. But if you look at the Olympics, there are about 33 events. We participate only in 15, and we're expecting double-digit medals based on that number that we're going for, right? So I think broadening the base, talking about inclusion, talking about women. So we go on themes. And fortunately, a lot of our partners in CSR have challenged us, pushed us to think differently, because they're like, if we're doing sport, then it has to, kind of meet their internal outcomes, their internal objectives of what they have on CSR. So it's been really exciting and a lot of learning for us.
So can you elaborate a little more on what you just said, internal, when you're working?
Yeah.
What, an example or something?
Yeah, so a good example would be someone like, say, for example, HDFC Bank, right? HDFC is probably the largest CSR corpus that they have to give into India and development, social development. But they were not doing anything in sport earlier on. They were funding individual athletes. But when we sat down with the leadership team, they were like, women is our mandate.
Okay.
So we actually curated a program called Unstoppable Karke Dikhaungi, and we chose the sports that we'll work, and we picked up young girls who we can support, and we worked with about 38 of them.
Yeah.
One of them also went to the Olympics. We had a few national records broken. So it's been really special to see how the girls have done. But what's interesting is we curated that program for them. So if someone says, I want to be in the disability space, then we'll curate a program around, athletes and able-bodied athletes and people with disabilities. So Hyundai, for example, is a good example of that. So their large mandate is called Humanities for Change, which is their global mandate. And they wanted to translate that to India as well.
Okay.
So when we sat down with them, they're like, we want to look at a program, and they call it Samarth.
Okay.
Everything around their projects are called Samarth. So we do the program where they support sport through GoSports.
Okay.
And they do a lot in art, they do a lot in accessibility, but everything sits under their large CSR mandate of Samarth. So I think companies are also realizing how to structure, how to showcase, how to showcase the impact, and how to help implementing organizations like us, build this. So it's a learning process. CSR is still fairly new. It's 8, 9, 10 years now. So lots of systems, processes, rule books, addendums keep coming up.
Correct.
But I think what we've built is, if you are someone who wants to support sport in India, you have an idea, you have an area, or you have a set of people, and you don't know how to go about it, then we are the people you come to. We can build it, we can structure it, we can tell you what might work, what can work, what will have the largest impact. We recently started working with a community called the Siddhi tribes. This is in the North Karnataka. They actually have African lineage. And they came in as probably slaves 200, 250 years ago into India. So they look like, the Africans, and they're built like that, and they're genetically blessed like them, and they can run really fast, and they are Indians. So, we have a program with RCB, with the cricket team, part of their CSR program, and there's an organization called Bridges of Sport who runs this in that community. So we've collaborated with them. So right now we are really we work with athletes, we work with academies, we work with communities, and with states. So that's really what GoSports does.
Lots happening.
A lot happening. Yeah, we are like 1,000 beneficiaries who we work with.
I'm also curious to know, how do you identify these talents? And then you mentioned you worked with only Northeast government. Are you working with the other state governments also?
We're in talks with the other governments, but we've started because we just didn't want to start working with all the governments in one shot, because it's a very different ball game. So we're only right now with the Arunachal Pradesh state, but we are in talks with Karnataka, we are in talks with Kerala, with Haryana. I mean, there are a bunch of conversations, UP happening. So it takes time, right? With governments, while the intent is there, but how do you take it? Where is your budget coming from? How do you make it work? And typically when it's infrastructure, it's possibly easier for the government, because they're building it and it's very, very clear to show the impact of what you've built. But in projects like this, it is very intangible for some years till you actually after that see results come in. So we don't promise medals. We as an organization believe medals is one of the outcomes, right? But we believe that today, if there's a young talented athlete who has the potential to be top 10 in the world, that's a dream worth pursuing. Let's get them there, right? And if they happen to go win that gold medal and do well, that's amazing. And we've seen that in the Paralympic space. I think we've had the wonderful, I think, good fortune of being an organization that set up something called as the Para Champions program. This is with IndusInd Bank, and they were very clear that we want to do something in the disability space. So we curated this program. We found, athletes in differently abled athletes, and in 2019, I had the chance to be at Rio, and our entire contingent was 19 people. China was 350 people, but we came back with 4 medals. And you cut to Paris, you had 84, athletes who went. many more women who went, thanks to the support that came in from the government, from other foundations. I think after 2 cycles of seeing the possibility of Paralympics, suddenly now we see so much of support coming in for, today you're not saying, should I support a para-athlete? You're like, of course, let's support them. It is high performance. So I think we love the challenges in Indian sport. We love it when people say, I'm not sure about this. I don't think it's a problem worth solving. And I think we are very excited about such problems to pick and chase and do. And then the scale will always come from the government.
Okay. Also, just to understand, how much does it cost to support one athlete?
So it really depends on the sport. It depends on what age group that athlete is. It depends on...
and what kind of support do they like? They have a mental health coach. They have like what?
So it really depends. So when an athlete signs up for our application and then they're shortlisted, we go through their potential. We do a bunch of tests. We get them on board, and we do something called as a goal sheet. So we sit with them. We sit with their parents. We sit with their coaches. We try and understand where are the gaps, what are the goals, where are they going to reach, and based on that we decide, okay, for this year they need this amount of money. So we will assign that amount to the athlete. So it's anywhere between 5 lakhs to 30 lakhs per year per athlete. So it really depends on what stage of their journey. And when you're a junior athlete, just playing international competitions become the most important intervention, because I'm pretty healthy and I just need to travel. I need to manage my recovery and eat right. So your support is extended to competitions, nutrition, equipment, and as they grew older, we start introducing them into different sports science elements of recovery, of training, of sleep. There are all kinds of tests that get done to really match, because the rest of the world is also way ahead. Every 4 years we take to catch up on something has already happened, and there's so much of sports tech now. There's so much of data and analysts that are there out there. This time, classic example of a data analyst was our hockey team, which won the Olympics. And, the coach, they had a mental conditioning expert, they had a data analyst, everyone sitting together and making those decisions, of how things should pan out on the court. So I think right now, Indian athletes are getting training, equipments, competitions. But when you talk about elite sport, it's the 1% that gets the medal or doesn't get the medal. So that 1% is really about high performance, right? And high performance gets into recovery, my sleep, my nutrition, my blood works. You're just tracking everything on it. So I think that's the exciting part. Many times for anybody to succeed, at least this is how I look at it, it's very important to, you need the right people around you to succeed, right? I mean, there was a story long back that said a group of villagers, went to, I'm sure it's everywhere, and I keep reading this always, on the environment that you create, even for plants and trees, right? There's one group of people just throwing taunts and shouting and, saying you're no good and you're not good enough. And it's very brutal, and that tree dies. And there's the same set of people encouraging them, nurturing them, saying, you know what, we'll get to your best potential. And that's how really, in my head, I see our roles. We are just the team that is trying to protect and keep them in a way that they meet their best potential. So which is why the medal could happen, the medal may not happen, and most likely medals won't happen. 99% of the time, you are not going to make it. But that 1% chance is there, and that's what we fight for. That is why it's worth pursuing. And then when you hear the national anthem, it just then you don't need to explain anything to anyone, right? You just get goosebumps. And I remember the first time I heard it at the Rio Paralympics, the entire stadium standing for our national anthem, and we had won our medal there. And I don't think I can name one of those, your top moments of your life. I think that for me goes over there.
Any takeaways from that?
It was nice to see, for a country that hosts the Olympics, how they all came together. India has just submitted our bid to host for the 2036 Olympics. It's a very, very big move for India. I think uh, politically, economically, and also from what the game can do for a country is very special.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of data also that countries that have hosted have gone bankrupt. So it's a current conversation on how do we get it right, how do we do it right. 10 years from now is not too far away before you realize it will come knocking at us. And it's also your young athletes, your 8, 9, 10-year-olds of today who will be participating in the 2036. So do we have enough programs for them to actually cater to our list there? And whether you win the bid or don't win the bid, you have to do a set of processes and get everything ready.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how things will pan out for us. From the Rio Paralympics, I think for us is, I remember I'd written an article after the games, and one of my big takeaways was we cannot complain. You know, just being born able-bodied is you're already probably gifted, right? Because, and I think even people with disability are gifted because they find what is the best for them. But I personally feel, you know, coming out of those games, it was like, there is so much to do. We have to do this. And then when we saw Paris and the results and how India embraced athletes with disabilities, right? Otherwise, we were the only organization doing it at that point, and the government was giving some support. But now it's a proper system of, there's an army of people supporting athletes with disabilities. So we believe that is one of our key successes, you know, at the foundation, where we want to change narratives that have got built. So, you know, disability was looked at more through the lens of sympathy. It was never high performance in sport. And women always were looked at as homemakers, you know, childbearers. And I mean, you do till that stage, and sport is a little thing. And today, if you look at the young girls, what they are acing, what they're cracking, what all stereotypes they're breaking, and how they're doing it.
Magical.
It's magical, right? So we feel that we're just using sport as a vehicle for all the social change that's happening around us. And along that way, if that, you know, while India builds for sport, we'll definitely create a lot of champions along the way.
The conversation with Deepthi continues, and there's so much more about her that you'd love to discover. Follow this space for part 2 of this inspiring chat. Until then, don't forget to always express yourself.